Welcome back to Talk Show, the show where we make the disaster digestible. It's Sunday, April 12th. Yesterday, Vice President JD Vance flew to Pakistan for historic peace talks with Iran. 21 hours of negotiations, no deal. JD Vancey Pants, he's saying it's Iran's fault. Iran said the U.S. made excessive demands. Trump, who's basically on another planet these days, says we win regardless. And that 2-week ceasefire you may have heard about, 9 days left before we find out if we're going back to war. Also this week, Pope Leo XIV, history's first American pope, denounced the delusion of omnipotence fueling the war, as Trump basically unveils a 250-foot triumphal arch in Washington to honor himself. We're 43 days into a war that Trump started and said would last 2 to 3 weeks. Great. Let's French these fries. In our first segment, let's talk about the historic peace talks failing after 21 hours. Vance Pants, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and intense Nepo baby Jared Kushner, these three brilliant American minds, met with Iran's parliament speaker and foreign minister. This was the first face-to-face U.S. Iran talk in 47 years. 47. Wild. There were 21 hours of negotiations. That's almost a day, I think many of us recall. And the result was no deal. Troublesome, difficult, naughty Mrs. Peace. She's an elusive mayfly. Ephemeral, transient, impossible to tie down. Except that we had peace before all this crap started. Right before the clown show took control. Vance Areno on Sunday morning said, this is much worse news for Iran than it is bad news for the U.S. Also adding, we leave here with a very simple proposal, a method of understanding, and our final and best offer. We'll see if the Iranians accept it. Translation, take it or leave it. So what broke down? According to both sides, the key sticking points are numero uno, enrichment of the nuclear variety. United States basically demanded Iran commit to never seeking nuclear weapons. Iran says it doesn't want nukes, never has, just wants nuclear power. The Strait of Hormuz is the second piece of this puzzle. The U.S. demanded that Iran open it back up. Iran wants control as leverage. Number 3, sanctions relief. Iran basically said, stop sanctioning us. The U.S. said, no. War reparations. Iran also said, hey, pay us for the shit that you blew up. And the U.S. said, absolutely not. And last but not least, number 5, the Lebanon ceasefire. Iran basically insisted that Lebanon be included in any major deal. Then the U.S., of course, said no. Israel's campaign against Hezbollah continues. Iran state media commented saying after 21 hours of talks and diplomatic efforts, the excessive demands by America prevented any agreement. The U.S. official to CBS said, no agreements have been made. And here's Trump's reaction. We'll see what happens. Look, regardless, we win. Regardless what happens, we win. We totally defeated that country. He claims we'll reopen the Strait of Hormuz with or without them. And U.S. Central Command says that they've begun clearing out the strait with underwater drones and mine-clearing operations. So we're unilaterally declaring victory and reopening Hormuz ourselves. What could possibly go wrong? The ceasefire is basically 2 weeks long, started on April 8th. It expires the 22nd. That means 9 days are left. If no deal is reached, Trump only has a few options. He could extend the ceasefire and keep negotiating. They could resume strikes on Iran, or they could follow through on the threat to annihilate a civilization. Pakistan's deputy prime minister said it's imperative that the parties continue to uphold their commitment to the ceasefire. Pakistan will continue to play its role to facilitate engagement. However, Israel is still striking Lebanon. Hezbollah are still shooting rockets into Israel. So the ceasefire is already a bit frayed, to say the least. In our next story, let's talk about Pope Leo XIV. Saturday evening, let me set the scene. St. Peter's Basilica. It's beautiful. You're in Vatican City. Pope Leo XIV led a prayer vigil, and that was for peace, one of our favorite words, on the same day as U.S.-Iran talks were happening in Pakistan. Pope Leo XIV, the Chicago-born pope, deeply wrought in that deep dish energy, bringing it back to the Vatican. So we're talking thick moral foundation, layered theological arguments, and enough substance to feed the masses, unlike Trump's thin crust ego trip. Pope Leo issued his strongest words yet on the war this past weekend, saying enough of the idolatry of self and money, enough of the display of power, enough of war. The key quote, "It is here that we find a bulwark against the delusion of omnipotence that surrounds us and is becoming increasingly unpredictable and aggressive. Even the holy name of God, God of life, is being dragged into discourses of death." So he didn't name Trump. He didn't name the United States. He certainly didn't have to. The message was clear. Hegseth and the Goon Squad are using the Christian faith to justify the war, casting it as some sort of holy mission. Leo's response basically is, God doesn't bless the war, especially not those who drop bombs. He's been cautious about criticizing directly. Earlier in the war, he kind of just stuck to his sort of muted appeals for peace and dialogue. But starting Palm Sunday, he ramped it up, called the war unacceptable, demanded Trump find an off-ramp, and, said that the threat to Iranian civilization was morally abhorrent. Saturday's vigil took it a little bit further, basically saying no more war. Nothing is lost by peace. Everything can be lost by war. The vigil was broadcast globally, okay? Parishes on every continent joined this thing. Candles were lit with the flame from the lamp of peace in Assisi. In the very pews of this vigil was the Archbishop of Tehran, the Belgian Cardinal Dominique Joseph Mathieu, which is kind of confusing because apparently we have a Belgian cardinal serving as active Archbishop of Tehran. Today I learned. Anyway, it was a coordinated global prayer. Millions of Catholics were unified in demanding an end to the war. Trump's reaction, total fucking silence. No acknowledgement, no response. Instead, he spent the weekend touting his triumphal arch. And speaking of triumphal arches, Friday, April 10th, Trump released official architectural renderings for his triumphal arch on the National Mall. Oh boy. The specs on this thing are fucking stupid. It's 250 feet tall, which is twice the height of the Lincoln Memorial. It's modeled after the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, but 80 feet taller, let's be clear. It had to be bigger than that. Topped with gilded eagles and a winged Lady Liberty figure with 4 golden lions at the base. It's going to have inscriptions, "One nation under God," and "Liberty and justice for all." Super duper. What was the Pope saying about idols and idolatry? White House spokesperson basically said it will be one of the most iconic landmarks, not only in Washington, D.C., but throughout the world. A fitting recognition of America's 250th birthday. Wow. The cost still being calculated, but it's going to cost, $15 million in public funds. Super. And who's it for? Yes, CBS asked the Trumperino, who's this for? And he said, me. Literally himself. Not veterans, not fallen soldiers, not America's 250 years of history. Just Trump. That's your guy, MAGA. That's your guy. Now, thankfully, not everybody just lets this stand. Vietnam War veterans actually filed a lawsuit in February to block construction of this thing. They argue that it disrupts historic sightlines between Lincoln Memorial and Arlington National Cemetery. The design goes to the Commission of Fine Arts this week for review. By the way, the commission is entirely composed of Trump appointees because he fired the previous 6 members in October of 2025. So it'll probably get approved. Fuck. So get this, at some point in the next couple of years, DC will erect a 20-foot tall gold bedazzled phallus directly dedicated to Donald Trump, built with taxpayer money, looming over the graves of soldiers who actually served. Can we just change the inscription? It should read, Ozymandias had nothing on this. In our next segment, let's talk a little bit about the continued strikes on Lebanon. While the U.S. and Iran were negotiating in Pakistan, Israel bombed Lebanon. I did a double take when I first heard this because I could have sworn a ceasefire meant people ceased firing. Instead, on Saturday morning, Israeli airstrikes killed 3 people at least in southern Lebanese town of Mefdoun. They destroyed residential buildings. They set an electricity complex on fire. I've brought this number up in previous episodes, but the death toll in Lebanon has crept past 2,000 people. Okay, UNICEF said in less than 10 minutes, over 100 airstrikes killed hundreds of people just as a ceasefire was being discussed in the region. Dozens of attacks killed dozens of children and injured several hundred. Israel's position says Lebanon wasn't part of the ceasefire. Iran's position, Lebanon must be included. Any deal requires Israel to stop bombing Lebanon. Pakistan agrees with Iran. The U.S., surprise, agrees with Israel. Hezbollah's response to this is firing rockets into Israel on Saturday morning. The response will continue until Israeli-American aggression against our country stops. Now, supposedly, separate talks between Israel and Lebanon are going to begin on Tuesday in Washington. Lebanon's president authorized negotiations despite the two countries having no official diplomatic relations. But Israel is still bombing Lebanon, and Lebanon is still firing back. The ceasefire is fictional, and over 2,000 dead Lebanese are not coming back. Let's get some quick good news here. We have to break up the madness with some happiness. Artemis II completed its lunar flyby on Monday. 4 astronauts got an unprecedented view of the moon's far side, if you know what I'm saying. It sets the record for the farthest distance from Earth, 252,000 miles. So everything went according to schedule. They returned safely. It was awesome. Now, one of the reasons I want to bring this story up is because I have to call myself out. Last week, I was talking about how this trip was setting a bunch of historic firsts. First woman to the moon, first Canadian to the moon, first black man to the moon. So many cool things. But Victor Glover said first black man to the moon, called everybody out, including me. Like I said, in my last episode, I brought this up. Victor said it's about human history, the story of humanity, not just black history, not women's history, but that it becomes human history. And the context of this is he was asked repeatedly in pre-launch interviews, what does it mean to be the first black man to travel to the moon? His response was, I don't know, diplomatic, but pretty firm. He's pushing back against being constantly defined by his race rather than his accomplishments. So I thought that was really great. And you don't get a lot of opportunity for that to slip into discourse naturally. What was awesome about this trip is they proved Orion's systems worked. They tested prox operations. They conducted awesome science experiments. There's amazing video. There's amazing photos. It was awesome. And they came home. While Trump was threatening civilizations, building monuments to himself, yet again, NASA reminds us that we can still do some pretty cool shit if we try. Congrats to the Artemis II crew. All right, everyone, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for a visit to the world around you, world news in a minute. The Iran war, Trump's war, day 43, it's all still really bad. The Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. began clearing out operations unilaterally. Iran denies this is happening. The Hungary election, this is a big deal. Viktor Orban may face a serious challenge, and that could mark a turning point to Putin's fears in Europe. Election results pending. I think we'll know maybe by the end of today, fingers crossed. Rory McIlroy at the Masters, largest 36-hole lead in tournament history by 6 shots and was 12 under par after the Friday round. Orthodox Easter just happened, and Russia has already violated the ceasefire by initiating drone strikes over the weekend. And our last bit in world news in a minute involves Eric Swalwell. Oh my, one of the former staffers has accused the California gubernatorial candidate of sexual assault. Swalwell, of course, denies the allegations. And that's your world, somehow still walking, even though it's been shot in the toe. Now let's talk about our main story. Trump's victory is a bald-faced lie. Trump has a storied history of saying, I win, even when he's lost. After 21 hours of failed negotiations, Trump told reporters, we'll see what happens when it comes to Iran. Regardless, we win. Regardless what happens, we win. We totally defeated that country. So what does winning look like? The objectives essentially constantly shift. Week 1, it was prevent Iran from getting nukes. Week 2, we want to destroy Iran's military capability. Week 3, we want to control the Iranian airspace, which didn't happen, and they shot down 2 of our jets. Week 4, nearing completion, not completed. Week 5, we said we were going to bring them back to the Stone Ages, which is a threat to commit war crimes, outstanding. And then week 6, we've totally defeated that country, all the while we're negotiating with them. Now, the cost of winning, we've talked about some of these numbers before. I'll try to go quickly. Lots of deaths, 13 American soldiers, 200 plus wounded. Jets have been shot down, 1 pilot missing. Iran has also seen a lot of deaths, 3,000 plus, including civilians. Lebanon, as I said before, over 2,000 dead. Israel has at least 23 deaths. The Gulf Arab states, that's right, just states nearby, have dozens dead from spillover. The economic impact is huge. People don't really remember that prior to this war, oil was $60 a barrel, and now we're at 120 plus a barrel. The global economy has been disrupted, fertilizers, other things like that, which we haven't really yet begun to feel. Remember? We're just getting into planting season. Strait of Hormuz still closed despite clearing operations. Yeah. A key piece here is the Allied trust. NATO is fractured. European allies are distancing themselves, and there's just no international support for this. There's no congressional authorization. I bring this up like every time. Trump just basically launched this war unilaterally. And there's no exit strategy. The ceasefire expires in 9 days with no deal. So what did Trump actually win? He didn't really win anything, but here's what they're saying is the win: that he killed Iran's supreme leader, that he destroyed nuclear facilities, that he degraded some military infrastructure, but really created a regional catastrophe with no clear path forward. And now there's the pressure of 9 days until this ceasefire expires. So what happens in 9 days? Well, one of the options is that Iran accepts the deal, which is pretty unlikely. Option number 2, Trump might extend the ceasefire and try to keep negotiating. Possible, but he'd have to walk back the final offer. Trump always chickens out, right? So maybe this is what's actually going to happen. Number 3, could just resume the war. Trump just follows through on the threats to destroy civilian infrastructure and commits war crimes. Super. And then oil skyrockets, hits $200 a barrel, and regional war spreads. Option number 4, Trump declares victory and leaves anyway, letting other countries just deal with it, which is his stated plan. Go to the strait, everybody. Just take it, protect it, and use it for yourselves. None of these are good outcomes. Winning might actually be clear objectives being achieved, minimal casualties, allied support, congressional authorization, diplomatic solutions being in place, regional stability being restored, and an exit strategy clearly defined. Instead, we have thousands dead, pricey oil, fractured NATO, everybody hates us, no deal, 9 days left, and a 250-foot stupid golden dingus that's a tribute to Trump's ego. How's all that winning doing for you, MAGA, huh? How's that feel? Oh, boy. So, day 43 of Trump's war, 21 hours of talks in Pakistan, no deal reached. Salon furniture enthusiast Vance basically called this America's final offer. Iran says they're making excessive demands. Pope Leo XIV condemned it, didn't name Trump, but everyone knew who he meant. Come on. Trump unveils his plans for this 250-foot arch. When asked who it honors, he said, me. Israel still bombing Lebanon despite the ceasefire. Artemis II splashed down safely after making a bit of history around the moon. And 9 days left until the ceasefire expires. As we say, if you learned something, I'm so sorry. If you didn't, you're coping correctly. I'm Tino. This was Talk Show. See you next week.